Welcome along, fellow Beatle people. This article was published in the Liverpool Echo on Saturday, December 7th, 1963. This is page 1. The headline says, Merseyside plays it cool, not a fan in sight. And then there's another headline that says, the only squeals came from BBC van's brakes. And then there's a subheading that says, the Beatles had one of their quietest ever receptions when they arrived at the Empire Theatre, Liverpool, this morning to rehearse 2 television programs. And the text says as follows. Secret plans were made to smuggle the Beatles into the theater. Extra detachments of police were drafted into surrounding streets to control the big crowds of teenagers expected by officials to mob the Beatles. But Merseyside's teenagers played it cool, ice cool. For when the Beatles arrived shortly before 11 a.m., there wasn't a single fan in sight. The Beatles arrived in a BBC television mobile van. It pulled up, brakes squealing. John, Paul, Ringo, and George leapt from the back and dashed like 4 streaks of lightning through the stage door. Quote, it must have been their quietest entry to any theater, commented a police officer. In fact, it's so quiet here, they probably could have come down on the bus and walked the rest of the way. He added, we are not allowing teenagers to queue up outside the front of the theater this morning, but nobody has been trying to do that anyway. By 9:50 a.m., there were 30 police, but only 1 fan outside the theater. And even she departed before the Beatles arrived. The lone fan was 19-year-old Wigan shop assistant Maxine Aspiden, who said, I'm flabbergasted. I arrived here at 8 o'clock expecting to be one of thousands, but I seem to be the only one. I'm outnumbered by the police something like 30 to 1. She added, I suppose the rest of the girls must be too busy doing their Christmas shopping to bother about the Beatles. Teenagers, all with tickets, started queuing outside the theater in Lord Nelson Street shortly before 1 p.m. The theater doors were open at 1:30 p.m., and fans started filing inside in an orderly way. Pudsey Street was closed to pedestrians and motorists, but the portion of Lime Street outside the theater was not closed to pedestrians, as police escorted ticket holders into the theater 50 at a time. Said a police spokesman, the fans couldn't have behaved better. They were excellent. A perfect example to teenagers who get hysterical over the Beatles in other parts of Britain. In fact, they were so orderly that traffic was able to proceed unimpeded through Lord Nelson Street, where they were queuing, he added. At 2:30 p.m., the Beatles recorded their jukebox jury show before an invited audience. This was shot for the first time out of London and goes on the air at 6:05 p.m. tonight. Then the Beatles had a half hour to chat to their fans before recording another 30-minute show, to be televised at 8:10 p.m. tonight. The Beatles were not expected to leave the Empire until shortly before going on stage at the nearby Odeon Theatre, where they appeared tonight. Pudsey Street, which runs between the 2 theaters, will be closed for a time to the public tonight to enable the Beatles to make the 50-yard dash from one to the other without being mobbed. But, as one policeman spokesman put it, if things are as quiet as this, those boys with the fringes are not going to have much trouble. At one stage, a troop of 8 mounted policemen arrived outside the theater, but when their services were not required, they went off. Kindly let me know your thoughts about this article in the comments below. Until next time, I wish you safe travels on all your journeys.